Welcome in, everybody. Hope you all had an awesome Thanksgiving wherever you spent it. I'm happy to say that I managed to finish up most of the weapon swapping, but it definitely wasn't easy. I ended up having to overhaul most of the weapon equipping framework I did in week 1, but things are working well now. So, with that being said, let's get right into what exactly I had to do to make weapon swapping work. The first step was to implement Unreal's relatively new enhanced input system. When it was released over a year ago, it definitely had mixed reviews, but I've learned to work with it at this point. Basically, we have these inputs that represent actions players will take in the game, like jumping, moving, and of course, swapping weapons. We then plug those inputs into an input mapping context, like this one, where we say what keys or buttons we need to press to trigger those inputs. The cool part about this system is we can easily swap between mapping contexts, which can be very useful. We can even have multiple active at the same time at different priorities, which also has many applications we'll get to in future videos. Then we get to the weapon swapping part, which I made a bit more involved than it is in a typical FPS game. Whenever I play games, I hate having to choose between carrying an SMG and an assault rifle or an SMG and a sniper. It definitely isn't a fun decision, so players of my game won't have to make it. We'll still have the usual primary and secondary weapon slots where players will typically have an SMG and an assault rifle. Additionally, though, we'll have a third slot where players can carry a specialty weapon like a sniper or a rocket launcher. To clarify, you could carry 3 assault rifles if you wanted to, but to make cycling through weapons easier, there will be 2 swap buttons. Those being a standard weapon swap button between primary and secondary, as well as another button that swaps between your special weapon and your primary weapon. It may seem a little complicated at first, but I think the third slot will really make the game more fun. The part that's actually complicated, though, is when we receive a swap input when we're already in the middle of swapping. Admittedly, the third slot makes this even worse than it typically would be, but it still isn't easy. Each swap is actually the combination of an unequip animation for the weapon you originally had and an equip animation of the new weapon. When we receive a new swap input, we have to cancel and restart animations depending on where in the swap process we are. Exceptions on exceptions on exceptions, which means lots of fun on my end. So, with that being said, let's get to the end result. As you can see, I have the weapon swap functionality almost done. It handles completed swaps perfectly and can even handle canceled swaps as long as it's canceled before we get to the equip animation of the new one. In my devlogs, you'll see game development as it really is, a series of problems that the developer needs to solve. Every feature I implement isn't going to work perfectly at the end of each week, and that's okay. Bugs happen, and I'll squash ones like these before you know it. Fixing the swap cancel issue will be what I tackle first next week, and then I'll see if I can get our characters moving around the level a bit. So until next time, I've been Steve, and I'll see you all in a week.